we are here to do another video when I get my hair out of my eyes. We're gonna talk about some tips to improve your eyeshadow. So I feel like, you know, I usually get a lot of compliments on my eyeshadow and people are like, oh my gosh, can you teach me how? So guess what? I'm gonna teach you. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. I'm gonna talk about 5 big things that you can do to improve your eyeshadow. Now I've already broken the first one because I did my face first. So if you really want to improve your eyeshadow, you need to do your eyes first. I already broke that rule because I'm doing my face first. So let's get started. All right, so now it's time to get up close and personal. So we're gonna go through some tips, and the palette that I'm going to be using today is Blush Crush from ColourPop. Ignore my crusty nails, I need to change my polish, okay? So, the first thing I wanna talk about is, I've said it a million times, you need to use an eye base. I've given y'all a couple of options that I really like. One of them is the MAC Painterly Paint Pot. I really like this one. And then if you want a more affordable option, they do have more colors in this, but I have the white one. This is the Pro Primer from LA Girl. This is from LA Girl? Yeah, LA Girl. So I've used the MAC one today on my eyes, but if you want a more affordable option, this one is really, really good too. So the reason that you should use an eye base instead of, like, say, a concealer, it seems unnecessary. Why would I buy another product that I probably don't need? The answer is that you do. Eye bases are designed to hold eyeshadow, to carry eyeshadow, to allow the eyeshadow to blend and things like that. So you need that. If you're having trouble with pigmentation in your eyeshadow, with it grabbing in weird places, that could be part of the problem. Could be that you're using a concealer instead of an eye base. So please use an eye base. Our next tip is gonna be about using the right brushes. Now this is the one I'm going to spend the most time on, just because we're gonna go through the whole eye look and I'm gonna show you the brushes that I use, and I'm gonna explain why I use those and kind of what they're for. So the first brush that I'm going to use is, this is called a shading brush, is what the company has called it, but it just kind of looks like this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a transition shade. So that can really be any color. It needs to be something that's gonna help to create a gradient for your look, and it needs to be something that's gonna carry some of those darker colors. So the point of a transition shade is it gives you something a little bit lighter to blend your darker colors into, so that way they're not going crazy and getting out of control. So it helps to kind of rein in those darker colors. So I think in this palette, I want to use the shade Cheek to Cheek right here. And then I'm going to use my Diamond and Blush palette as my mirror. And then try to blend with your eyes open. That's kind of another tip if you can. Just because if you can do it without, you know, stretching your eyes or like pulling, you're going to see a little bit better what the final product is going to look like. So just with this brush, I take the transition shade and I'm just kind of placing it where I want it to be. So I'm just kind of putting this where I want it to go. I'm not blending it yet. So when you use this brush, you're not blending it with the same brush that you're applying it with. You're just laying the color down. That's all you're doing. So we're just gonna place this where we want it to be. And even with the eye base, though we're not blending it, it's gonna look a lot better. Just because you see how it kind of already looks blended right now, that's because we used an eye base. So it's gonna stick appropriately and it's gonna blend much better. So we're just kind of, I have a tendency to like lean in whenever I'm doing my eyeshadow. So, yep, there we go. So that's our first brush that we've used, and it's gonna take a few brushes, so don't be surprised. That's why eye sets usually come with a few brushes. Next is to use a clean blending brush in between shades. So with a clean brush, it has zero eyeshadow on it, we're going to blend the transition shade. And this is how you're gonna get that smoky effect. You lay a little bit of shadow down and then you blend with a clean brush. Don't put any lighter eyeshadow on it. Sometimes you can do that if you have a really dark color, but your transition shade should be light enough that you really don't need to. It's just better to use a clean brush. And you see we have a very smoky, blown out effect without having to use a million eyeshadows. We just use one. For my crease color, I think I want to use the shade How Rouge over here. You can't see that. Now because the shades are really similar, I'm going to use the same shading brush that I used for my transition shade, but you can use a clean one if you have it. Especially if the shades are not very similar, I would go ahead and use a different one. And we're going to use the same technique for this. So we're going to take that shading brush and we're really going to focus it even more than we did our crease color, or I'm sorry, our transition shade. What am I saying? So this one we're just gonna focus a little more because this is gonna be darker, so we want it to be a little bit narrower focus. So I'm just kind of placing it in a line like that. Take our blending brush again that doesn't have any eyeshadow on it. So also when you're blending, one thing that really helps is if you use very light pressure, especially with these darker colors. So one of the ways you'll know that you're using light pressure is where you hold your brush. So you see I'm kind of holding it far away. You're gonna use a lighter pressure that way. And we're just gonna keep working that. Don't be afraid to take some time to blend. If you wanna get a really good smoky look, it's gonna take time to blend. A lot of checking to see if it's all symmetrical and things like that. So we're just gonna keep blending, keep blending. So I think that looks good. Next is my favorite part, which is the lid, the main lid color. Now it depends on what kind of eyeshadow you're going to use as far as like what tool to use. So like if you're gonna do a metallic, like let's say this color right here would be a good example. Usually with a metallic, I actually like to use my finger, but even with a metallic, you can use a packing brush. Now a packing brush is going to look like this and they come in all different sizes. So it's just something that's like flat and very densely packed. So the denser a brush is packed, and this is for face brushes even, the more densely a brush is packed, the more coverage you're going to get. So that's why you want to use a densely packed brush on your lid. And like I said, they come in all different sizes and everything. So I'll do a little bit with the brush and I'll do a little bit with my finger. This is actually a really pretty color. So all you're going to do is you're going to tap. Now with the others, you were doing those windshield wiper motions. We were blending, but now we're trying to pack on color. So we really want to tap. So tap, tap, tap. And you see how that gives you the best coverage with tapping. And it's also gonna help reduce fallout, especially with metallics. So now I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna do the rest of my lid with my finger. We're gonna do the same thing, just tap, tap, tap. And this is just kind of a basic eye look. This isn't really anything fancy. So tap, 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 tap. I really like metallics with the finger because I think the natural moisture in your finger really ups the shine of them. So I really like to do metallics with my finger, especially when I'm wanting that sheen that you usually get from a metallic. One thing you can also do to amp up the coverage from a metallic is put it on your brush and then spray it. I personally don't really like to do that because I just feel like it makes it so chunky. So usually I don't like to do that, but you know, it's up to you. Freedom in makeup, right? So then I'm gonna go back in with my blending brush and I just like to kind of diffuse those edges of where I laid down that metallic, just so that way it doesn't look so stark. And again, using light pressure. Now if you use a glitter, you need to make sure that with glittery eyeshadows, that your dark colors are done before you go in with the glitter, because you don't want to be blending with glitter because it can cause it to fall into your eye basically, and you don't want that. So the last brush we're going to use is for our inner corner highlight. Now let me see, do I have one of these clean? Yeah, this is semi-clean. So I like to use these kind of brushes. Y'all know I call them pom-pom brushes. I don't really know why. So it's just kind of a small, little bit fanned, but mostly flat-headed brush. So that's what you're gonna use for your inner corner. And you can also use it for the lower lash line as well. So you wanna take a lighter color for your inner corner. It can be matte or it can be metallic, it's up to you. And then you're just gonna load it on that brush and just tap it here, wherever you want it to be brightened. And then make sure you blend it up into here a little bit, because otherwise it's just gonna look like some random light color in your inner corner. So I just kind of tap and blend. There's not really any particular motion that I do with this. Just as long as it's blending up here a little bit. And it's just meant to brighten that inner corner. And you can see the contrast between this eye where I've done it and this eye. It just kind of awakens your eye a little bit. Okay, we're looking good here. I like to even drag it just a tiny bit onto like that lower lash line. And then if you go back over it with your lower lash line color, it looks really cool. Another thing I like to do is just to take that same shade on my finger and just right smack dab in the middle. Just tap it over the lid, especially when I do a halo eye. This looks really cool. So just kind of tap that color just in the center there. And you want to do kind of an upside down triangle shape, so you want it to be wider on the lid and then just kind of narrow up, kind of taper up, if that makes sense. Which you would think that would be a hard thing to do with your finger, but it's really not. I keep blinking so I can see how it looks. And then I like to take another clean blending brush and just kind of gently scrape over that just to blend the two metallics together. And you see how that just kind of gives you a nice little focal point in the middle of all that metallic. So that's how I do the main lid. And just to clarify, a blending brush is something that's a little bit fluffy. It's not extremely densely packed, but it's just kind of fluffy, has usually like a rounded head on it, and it just really works to get those eyeshadows and blend. Sometimes they can be kind of flat top too. So now for the lower lash line, we are going to take either, because you do have options for the lower lash line, so I'm grabbing my options. So for the lower lash line, you could use a pencil brush like this one. It's just kind of got a densely packed, rounded head on it. Or you could use an angled brush like this. I think sometimes they're called eyeliner brushes. Or you could use a flat top brush like you used on your lid. So really any of those brushes will work. You just don't want something that's really big and is gonna fluff eyeshadow everywhere. So I'm just gonna take that same How Rouge color. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna take Blush Wine here. It's a little bit darker. And I'm gonna show you something that I like to do with my eyeshadow. So we're just going to very gently scrape that along the lower lash line. Now I'm not really like just making a line, I'm just kind of barely touching. So every once in a while I'm relieving that pressure off of the brush, so it's not even touching my under eye at certain points. So, and I like to make it a little bit thicker on the outer corner of my eye and then a little bit thinner towards the inner corner. So towards the inner, I won't even hardly touch my eye. And I'm gonna take a little more of that, and I like to bring it in this corner here and then bring it up onto this portion of my eye, just that really outermost corner. And we're gonna blend it in a minute, so it's okay, calm down. And we're just going to tap, tap, tap a little bit of that out here. And it looks a little scary right now, but I promise you it's gonna look really cool in just a second. And you see how when I connected that outer corner from my lower lash line and my lid, it really gave it a cool look. So now I'm gonna take that blending brush again, and we're just going to very lightly blend that shade into our look that we've done. So right here, just blend, blend, blend. And I just really love how this looks. So do you see how that gave it just a little more depth? So you can keep adding darker and darker colors if you want to get more depth. So this would kind of take that look from like a daytime look to a nighttime kind of look. The last thing I want to show you on the lower lash line is how to create a gradient. So we're gonna take the packing brush we used for metallic. I'm gonna take that enamored metallic that we did on our main lid, and I'm going to take that, I'm gonna start in the middle of my eye, and then we're going to blend towards the inner corner. So that's really pretty much all you have to do to create a gradient, is just overlap those shadows. So see, all I did was I just overlapped the dark and the light. I usually like to put the light over the dark, and then if you feel like the edges aren't very blended, then just go over it with the lighter color. Or you can take a smudgy brush like the one we used on our inner corner and just kind of smudge them together. Alright, so now the last thing I want to show you is, oh no, I have eyeshadow fallout on my face. Very common problem. I'm going to show you how to fix it. I've shown you before, but we're really going to emphasize it in this video because this video is all about eyeshadow. So take your eye base, especially if it's like the color of your skin, that really helps. Just take a tiny, tiny bit on your finger and just very lightly tap. Now with most colors, that'll be really all you need to do to fix it. If you feel like the color isn't quite right or you just want a little more coverage, then take your concealer that you use under your eyes, take one tiny little dot and just pat it on. We've done our little eyeshadow tips and tricks. We got our lipstick on. What do y'all think? This is again the Fenty, the Griselda lipstick for anybody who might want to know. So just to recap our little eyeshadow tips that we went over, number one, do your eyes first before your base. Obviously I broke that rule, but you know what, it's just easier to edit that way. So do as I say, not as I do on that one. Normally I would do my eyes first. My second one is use an eye primer. Again, you can use the MAC Painterly Paint Pot or whatever shade works for your skin tone, or you can use the LA Girl Pro Primer that I talked about before. Also make sure that you're using the right brushes. So you use kind of a packing brush or something that's, you know, a little bit more thin to lay down your transition color and your darker colors. Use a clean blending brush to blend them out. Take your time while you're blending. Use a flat brush that's a densely packed brush on your eyelid. Use a small fluffy brush on your inner corner. You have 3 different brushes to choose from for your lower lash line. And then use a small fluffy brush for your inner corner. We also talked about how to create a gradient, and then also make sure that you blend often. That's my next tip. Blend, blend, blend. When in doubt, blend. It'll keep you from getting harsh lines and it'll help you get that really smoky effect. Also pay attention to how much pressure you're using on your brushes, so make sure you hold them far away, use very light pressure, and your looks will be so much better. So I hope that helped you guys with your eyeshadow, kind of learning how to do it. It takes a lot of practice, so you just gotta keep doing it over and over and over again. And I can't wait to see what kind of looks you guys create. I'm really excited. I think I'm gonna do another live hangout on Sunday, so stay tuned to my Facebook for that. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.